Hey there, pirates. Welcome aboard the Anime No Me channel. It was revealed to us why the world doesn't recognize Luffy and doesn't know the true legend of the sun god, Nika, and that's because there is someone pretending to be the sun god who is being worshipped in Elbaf. Now, I'm going to reveal who this god is and how he obtained the powers of the sun god of Elbaf, and not only that, how Luffy will take his rightful place as the true sun god. So, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and don't forget to comment on which straw hat you think will have the most growth in Elbaf. Now let's get to the video. Guys, during chapter 1128, we get some new revelations about the possible Elbaf where the Straw Hat Pirates are. We see them gathering shortly after the attack on the gigantic lion cat that had attacked Nami and Usopp. We also see Luffy arguing with Usopp because he was supposed to have defeated that giant animal. And Usopp explains that he didn't do it because he panicked. And before he knew it, he was already in the cat's mouth. And here, we reach the moment where new revelations are made to us in this chapter. After all, Usopp shares his opinion on where they are, saying that those clothes really look like the ones traditionally worn in Elbaf. The problem is, if those clothes belong to the island's inhabitants, they shouldn't fit them since it's an island of giants. So, the Straw Hat Pirates decide to explore the island and find out more information in the city. As I mentioned in the previous video about this saga, until now, we had only been seeing the same crew members who had already joined Luffy in Little Garden, where giants in Elbaf were first introduced to us. This goes beyond a major reference. After all, now they reveal that they can't find Robin and the others and need to search for them. At this moment, we get another piece of information that will definitely be more important later, where it said that even though they are in a vast space, they can't feel any wind. And as they head toward the city, we see the arrival of a giant who isn't as big as the others we've seen in the story. He's riding a motorcycle, which is actually a giant grasshopper. He says he's in a hurry, but before leaving, he makes some important revelations. The first major revelation is that the land belongs to the sun god, and no, he's not talking about Luffy, but someone who's alive in that place and claims to be the sun god. The second is that they shouldn't continue down the road they were traveling, as he says ahead on that path they would find fierce guardians protecting the sun god's temple, and no one who dared to go there ever returned. This, of course, grabs Luffy's attention, and he runs in that direction without thinking twice. We also see Zoro getting excited by this information, and he's also eager for a fight. Along the way, we see that the almost endless road seems to repeat itself, and even the castle looks just like the other one. This is because, apparently, the Straw Hats are trapped in a large dome, as I mentioned in the last video about this topic, and we were right with another theory. When Luffy hit his face on the dome's edge, even the sky began to crack, which left the local inhabitants extremely scared. At that moment, more revelations are made. They finally realize they are in a giant's room, inside a sort of animal cage, which explains what I mentioned about the wind and its importance throughout the video. Not only that, upon reuniting with Chopper in that place, they also noticed the variety of human-sized clothes and realized that they were being used as dolls. An interesting detail is that when Usopp sees the clothes, he says that the sun god seems to be someone skillful, which is interesting since the true sun god is his captain. Afterward, we encounter the guardians, who are just animals raised by the giant who owns that place and is worshipped as the sun god, the owner of that Lego dollhouse. The first to appear is a serpent, which Luffy attacks as soon as it shows up. Then, Nami notices the presence of giant rats and a gigantic crow, but none of them stand a chance against the Straw Hats, who didn't roast the animals simply because they were already full from the rabbit. And remember, in the last video, I mentioned that Luffy was without his straw hat. One explanation for this is that the giant who changed his clothes left him without it. But it was actually just a mistake. In this chapter, the hat is on his back. Continuing, Nami, Chopper, and Usopp are worried, saying they need to finish this and escape before the sun god arrives. Again, they are not talking about Luffy. They don't even know he is the sun god. Luffy reminds us that everything was on fire because the fire spread, as we see in the scene. Meanwhile, the giant called the sun god was approaching, and his appearance is somewhat eerie. He carries a large staff in the shape of the sun, wears a black robe with white feathers, and has an animal skull mask, possibly from a giant bovine. We then see the sun god arriving, shouting upon seeing the temple in flames. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats return to the cage to escape in the opposite direction from where they came, even running on top of the giant lion cat they defeated in the last chapter. And now, the giant sun god who appears in this chapter seems to have an authoritative and imposing presence, but at the same time, an aura that is somewhat sinister. After all, he doesn't care about capturing people, as he did with the Straw Hat Pirates, putting them in a cage where he seems to be conducting some kind of experiment, or perhaps just wanting to feel like the sun god. Inside that place, place, the people appear to be trapped in a world with its own mythology, where they worship that rabbit who is now already lunch, and other beings treated as deities, along with their main god, the giant who takes on the role of the sun god. However, his performance lacks clear motives, since the people are already imprisoned. His reaction upon seeing the temple in flames reveals a mix of fury and desperation, which we notice in the speech bubble expression of the giant and in his behavior. He clearly sees himself as a revered and powerful figure, as he wants to hunt down the Straw Hat Pirates. But at the same time, he might just be a child or acting like one. As I mentioned before, there's no reason for all this theatrics. He might simply be exploiting the title of Sun God as a legend admired by him and told to those trapped inside the dome, implying that he could be taking advantage of a myth or legend, distorting the truth for his own benefit. His appearance with the sun-shaped staff and the macabre mask reinforces this duality of a revered leader with hidden or malevolent intentions. Not only that, but it could also suggest the opposite appearance, as he may be using the mask to hide his own face, perhaps one of weakness which wouldn't command respect from those who could see him. After all, the dome is mirrored on the inside, creating a false world atmosphere with Lego roads and a fake sky. But on the outside, it's transparent, so the giant watches the people in the cage, while no one can see him the entire time. The fact that he appears at a moment of crisis may indicate that he's more concerned with his image and power in that environment than with the real well-being of the people around him. It seems like he's trying to replicate Elbaf, or concepts of Elbaf within that dome. After all, we saw a replica of the Yggdrasil tree, which I mentioned to you is much smaller than we expected. Now, we can think of it as a replica of the true Yggdrasil. However, the arrival of the true sun god, represented by Luffy, promises to expose this farce, obviously without any intention, as Luffy and his companions still don't fully understand the true purpose of Gear 5. On the other hand, the giant pretending to be the sun god seems to not understand either. After all, Oda made a point of showing Luffy in his Nika form, and even then, the giant didn't recognize him, which indicates that he also doesn't know Nika's true form. It's worth remembering that when Carmel created a homie in the shape of the sun using flames caused by Linlin, Big Mom, during her childhood, the people of Elbaf panicked at the sight of the sun god, indicating that no one there really knew what Nika looked like. And now, Luffy, impulsive and fearless, will likely directly challenge this false deity, but he certainly won't take his place as the true heir to Nika's legacy, even though he is the real sun god, unless another character steps in to recognize Luffy as he uses the power of Gear 5. The confrontation between these two, a usurper and the true bearer of the title, doesn't seem to have the potential to be the climax of the Elbaf saga. After all, this seems to be just a small transition arc, which suggests that the true villain of Elbaf has yet to appear, but it's likely to involve Loki and the royal family of the kingdom. But what do you think about this? When reading the chapter, did you notice all these details? Comment. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.